created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
And so, with our deepest appreciation to all our listeners in 687 cities in 85 countries in the world that are listening to us, of course, in the later dissemination of this program, because we are premiering on YouTube, but it will be disseminated later. And are listening to us in our home site in Buzzsprout or in other streaming services, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, and many, many more. So, with our deepest appreciation, we would like to share with you one of the most popular duets from the opera Les Contes d'Hoffmann, the Tales of Hoffmann, which we have addressed in the past. If you go to the Parlando, we have already talked about the opera itself. If you go to the chat GPT, we have already talked about Maestro Offenbach. But today we are keeping our attention on this duet from sometimes the order of the acts changes. We will discuss it later, but let's refer it to as the Giulietta's Act. And so in this Giulietta's Act, we have one of the most beautiful orchestral openings and the duets as Katia is going to share a piece with us. We are going to talk about the rest of the melody, but I wanted to share before we jump into the details of this very beautiful duet. I wanted to share with you that maybe my first thoughts would be around what we see on stage when referring to this Giulietta's act. And what I wanted to share with you is that from my perspective, this is too hypersexualized. What you see on stage is usually, of course, Niklaus and Julieta singing this beautiful duet, but also you see too many things happening on stage that I have gone through the libretto and the notes that you can see now on the screen, referring uh, to the partitura itself, and there is nowhere where it says that have people portraying that they are having sex in numbers as if it was an orgy. Nowhere it is suggested in that explicitly. And I think that it has to do with that very bad habit of stage productions that want to be so, they say, impactful or realistic or whatever you want to call it, that they want to call the attention of people with that happening on stage. I was having in my mind, in fact, the latest production in the Opera of Bellas Artes. They were in the lower part of the stage. Of course, the singers were appeared on the opera, but they were in a sort of a lower level. But I was paying attention to that because I told myself they're really doing it. And I was asking myself, why do you need to do that on stage? And of course, if there's people who say, yeah, yeah, it is justified because of this, of that, blah, 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 blah. But it is not even in the Bacchanale in Sansone Dalila when the name itself is Bacchanal. It is openly a Bacchanal. uh, it is not that. It is suggested as I would say, a sensual environment where people allow themselves to go a little further. But even if that is so, why is there a need to do it that openly, if not obvious, do it that openly that I don't even think that is good taste. Even because the melody is beautiful and you distract people because people like to watch. And so why distracting people to something that really doesn't have anything to do with the opera or the libretto itself? So that's where I wanted to start to call the attention of people because way too unnecessary from my perspective. And I don't know if you have some thoughts on that, Katia, just before we go ahead with the content of the duet.
Yes, yes, I think that the music itself make you feel that it is I don't want to use sexy because it's not a sexual issue. It's um it's more sensual, and
Yeah,
it's
more
not the
sensual.
same. Yeah, it's not the same at all. The music, of course, that is thinking about moving your emotions, your sensations, and 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 yes, it is essential because it gets to you through your senses, through your sight, through your ear, and you can feel like a warm air in the environment. But yes, I think that it has been taken uh, too much far of what it was the main idea.
And
I
I
don't
am
agree.
pretty sure that the fellow colleagues, the singers, are not really comfortable. I mean, you're walking on the stage singing ta da da, but you know that right there in front of you or below, people are performing what looks to be too much for a stage. I mean, so
I'm not sure because there are many kinds of people and many kinds of singers. And I mentioned this because um, a few years ago, I saw a version of La Chida en la Mano. I don't want to talk about the singers. I will not mention their names, but they were almost having sex on stage, and it was La Chida en la
le
Mano.
darem la mano. Lo ci darem. Instead of la mano, it was something else, right? Lo
Yes,
ci darem. Well,
yes,
I don't want to be too on the extreme side of no, perform everything as in the original because I'm not really that one, but I'm not really on the opposite side. I think that's going way too far. And let's get started. And I think it is nice that I left on on the screen. I remember that I always have problems in synchronizing my screen and what I'm reading, and I found that I have this score that I'm sharing with you on the screen, and it is not the one that I have printed. Again, I have two
as
versions
usual.
myself. So excuse me if I get mixed somewhere, but I wanted to leave this on the screen because the opening itself works to perfection because the volume. Uh, Somehow the type of emotion, the ambience that they can build is really touches you because it starts dun 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 dun, and Maestro Offenbach manages to not make it boring or repetitive because you say ta tan ta tan ta tan ta tan. No, it is tan 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 because it builds a little in volume. It builds in the chords that are being played, but it is. I think he was really a master. This is a masterpiece because he really knew how to build it without making it boring, and it captures you from from the first moment that it starts with the orchestra, and when we reach the last moment, which we will refer to later. So that's why I left all these notes that open the duet. And before we jump into the technical difficulties, I wanted to refer to the vocal difficulties of, as we have shared before, singing in French. So singers have to reduce the difficulties because I'm going to share you an example, and I know that we have listeners from Paris that have been growing consistently. Yeah, thank you very much, Paris. I think it's already one of the 10 cities that listens to us the most, so they will understand when I say "Belle nuit." And we the problem, remember in French that we have us. So nuit, the u that goes to the back of your head, u, that u. So it is nuit, nuit, oh nuit d'amour. La u, the other u that doesn't go that far, but it is a different u. So if you wanted to pronounce, even if you pronounce it in French, it is difficult if you are studying the French because it's belle nuit, oh nuit d'amour, souris à nos ivresses. So there are way too many sounds. Even if we can speak Spanish, we have z, which is that vibrated sound. We don't really have it, and we have s, which we have, but it is different. And we have iv again, a fricative sound, which we also have, but we don't use in Spanish really. We don't say vaca. We say vaca, the same as burro, even if they are two B's.
We shouldn't. We should say vaca.
We should, but we don't. So you say ivresse, ivresse, nuit, hu, douce. So there are happening so many sounds that we don't really use, and that we know that Italians don't have either. So if you want to make it a very good version in the original language, it really is complicated. You have to sacrifice some sounds so that it actually works for the vocal technique. But keeping that in mind, I also wanted to share with you that fortunately or unfortunately, this is also part of the French repertoire that we have also shared in the past, that French repertoire tends to be very delicate, opposite to the Italian that usually goes higher in volumes and has a different, let's call it, texture in the writing and in the emotions that many times are explosive or very clear, or that there is no doubt of what is being communicated. Most of the times, French repertoire is more delicate in the sense that uh, people have to pay attention to what's been going on the stage to realize of what is being communicated. So maybe Belle Nuit, it is very quiet. Belle nuit, nuit d'amour. We don't have it written the piano, pianissimo, the P, double P, or triple P, but we know that you don't start because it doesn't make sense. You even have the voice of I mean, the sound of the orchestra in the background, and it has started dun 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 dun. So in accordance, even if it's not written on the score, you can start with this volume on the orchestra and you go, it doesn't make sense. So the music itself carries you into that nuit plus douce que le jour. Sorry, I wanted to make a mention there. I went to Belle nuit d'amour sur nos ivresses, nuit plus douce que le jour. This final that I interrupted, oh belle nuit d'amour, the complete phrase is a little different of the others. You come, belle nuit, nuit d'amour sur nos ivresses, nuit plus douce que le jour. And this is like a conclusion. This is like a little, I don't want to say louder or stronger, but it's different because you say oh belle, like I was saying, like conclusion, oh belle nuit d'amour. When you say oh belle nuit d'amour, then it opens, because it was Niklaus who started. It opens to the part, or moves or migrates into the part where the two voices now are singing together. And I will be mentioning it very often because it is a duet where Maestro Offenbach decided to make use of the voice of the mezzo, or the lower voice, in a very interesting way. First, he has decided that Niklaus, or the lower voice, opens the melody. And after rapping, over, over nuits d'amour, and then come the two voices with what Katia shared with us at the beginning. And that construction, it's very interesting because I found in the week A video where there is only the soprano voice and is accompanied by an instrument instead of the voice of the mezzo. And it works to the perfection because if you notice on what we are going to see, in fact, the mezzo, the voice of the mezzo is sort of an instrument opening and joining with the voice of the soprano. Yes, it speaks, it has words, but it has been built around an opening. Imagine that there are no words, and that's where you find, as I have explained in other areas, when you can take out the words and still get the melody, the maestro was a genius in it, right? Because and there is just where I was saying you have to change a little the intention just before the two voices join together. Of course, not that much volume, but no, just to make you notice the difference. But before we get into the two voices, I also wanted to share with you that even though, as you can see on the screen, there are not many ligaturas. So it is supposed, if you look at the stage, you say, I can sing with as many colors because there are no ligaturas. But that is not true. Would you like to explain that, Katia?
Yes. If you already, as a singer, if you already know what is happening on this part of the opera, what is supposed to happen on stage, and if you pay attention to the music, to the orchestra, everything is floating. It has to give the sensation that you are already on a boat floating through the water, right? Pum, 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 pum. Unless you are at the Olympics, probably you will do this. But in this case, well, it is an intimate moment. You are with your beloved one, so that makes the magic, and that gives you the whole idea of how it has to sound. And there's no need to see that there is a legato or a pretty, very signalized, but it's obvious. That's not gonna work. It doesn't make sense. The music itself shows you how it goes. And also there is no need for me to see this P or double P or forte or mezzo forte indicated because the text is already guiding you. It is an intimate moment. If you are giving an introduction, you are not gonna start with the play of your voice. You are just opening. You are when you are with somebody that you love, you usually goes from the less to the most. So the music will work in the same sense, in the same way.
And I think it is a good time to mention two very important things. Again, important that you plan ahead. I mean, you have to build the whole duet in your mind, how you are going to evolve. And since this is a duet, you need to negotiate and understand and work on that with the person you are singing it with. Many times we have uh, heard versions of singers when the two of them have very beautiful voices, because this one is another one that requires beautiful, beautiful voices, but something doesn't match, you know? The two voices are individually singing individually nice, but when they come to the part when they need to sing together, it doesn't work. Uh, and there is something that it has to do with the harmonics of and the type of each of the voices. I mean, there is no way you can change what you already have. So if two voices are not meant to sound well together, well, they are not meant to sound well together. But what you can do musical in musical and technical terms to make it work, that's where you also have to do. Because more than often, and Katia knows it, more than often, when two singers need to reach an agreement, first you say, if the mezzo wants to go higher in the volume, then she's going to push you to increase your volume, even if it doesn't work, because there is no way the soprano will accept to sound lower than the mezzo.
It's not gonna happen.
And there are parts because Maestro in this way he built the duet. There are parts where the Maestro made the two of them sing the same notes. So of course, no one is going to sit in the volume. No one is if one is singing louder, the other will immediately sing louder in order to sound at the same volume when they are singing the same notes. The mezzo is usually singing a third below. Many times she's singing a third below. So it is not too far apart, but that gives more texture to the voice. So if you have a mezzo that thinks she's Amneris, instead of singing Hoffman, she's going to way too loud, or she's going to, if not fully legato, if she is not working well with the transition of each of the syllables, if she says, if you notice each of the consonants sounding and sounding and sounding, even if it sounds more or less nice, it's going to break the harmonic assembly of the two voices. So imagine Katia singing, and the other, it's going to sound horrible. That
I'm
agreement,
gonna leave.
and that agreement, because in a way you have to be cordial to your fellow colleague on the stage and say, you cannot say openly to him, hey, you're not doing a nice legato, because it's going to cause a war. Or hey, you're falling short of breath. I mean, you have to find ways to tell the other people on the stage that you need to make it sound nicer, right? But if you are pursuing art, you really need to agree on that, and that can be difficult. I wanted to mention something else besides that. Um, it has to do with the legato. We say, yeah, it is very nuit d'amour, de la souriance ivresse, but it has, in a way, it is sung like floated. It is like floating notes. Imagine what Katia was sharing with you. If it works for you, that you imagine that you're rowing a boat, so that you think that your notes are. It is not. It is not that. Not all the voice is thrown out over there. So it has to flow to be legated, like a flow of air, a breeze of air, of water, but it has to do. And you have to plan very well where you're going to catch your breath. Again, because Maestro Offenbach was not very generous in the opening part for giving you places for breathing. And if you don't have, because that's going to be more obvious at the end. So, he gives you a pause that is very, in fact, at the beginning, that it comes natural for you to breathe. Then you don't, at least for the voice of the mezzo, there is no pause. So, immediately without anything, which is not true. So the mezzo usually takes a piece of the time of Amu to end a little earlier, so to catch her breath and to start at the same time with Giulietta. But the mezzo has to be smart to do that, because she's not going to be able to carry for 9 bars without breathing. So she has to do that. So, um, Now going full in the part where the two voices are mixing together, the melody is somehow easy. It doesn't require really high notes. It requires more low notes for the mezzo, which we are going to detail and can be tricky for the emission. But I noticed that the part of the soprano has several achacaturas which have to be very delicate, very delicate, because otherwise, again, is going to lose the sense of the melody. So better if they are done, but better if they are done nicely. And the truth is that many sopranos skip them. So, because that's the easy way out. When there is something difficult, the singer just says, "Oh no, it's not there. I didn't see it. Move ahead."
I'm not gonna do this. Yes.
A little ornament there? No, forget it.
Not
A
for me,
little there?
thanks.
No, no, no. I'm going to increase the volume and nobody will notice. So let's move ahead. So we haven't said about the text, but the truth is that the text, it's not that it is not important, but it is not like you're telling a story. The truth is that you are uh, an excuse of words for sharing this time where you say, "Oh, beautiful night, beautiful night, night of love, smile." Ivresse is very clear in French. I really have a problem in translating into other languages because ivresse makes reference to, of course, ivresse, people know that it is getting drunk, but she's not saying, "Hey, smile at me drinking." Ivresse makes more reference to to the things that make us feel so plain, most of the time excesses, eating too much, being with other people, sometimes drinking as well. So that would be ivresse. So night of love, smile or accompany us in all those things that we enjoy. Nuit plus douce que le jour, oh belle nuit d'amour. The night that is sweeter than the day, oh beautiful night of love. Of course, love doesn't mean the love where you want to have a relationship with another and marry, have children. Amour has more of the other sense of the
What did we
things
see on stage?
of what we see on the stage, right? Which shouldn't be that obvious, as we mentioned earlier. So, le temps fouillé sans retour emporte nos tendresses. The rest of the text is a way of explaining or building the environment so that people understand that we are talking about that particular moment in time where you are enjoying yourself, where you are enjoying your life, when you are enjoying everything. That's what is built around the lyrics of Belle Nuit ou Nuit d'amour. But again, going back to the duet, anything that you would like to suggest or comment, Katia, now that the two voices need to mix? And this is the first time that they mix because the mezzo just opened, and now they are together.
Yes. Well, I had the opportunity to sing this beautiful duet with a very beloved friend of mine. She's also a soprano. She's not a mezzo, but she is a little bigger soprano than me. Well, everybody's a bigger soprano than me because of my collaterals and the bright of my voice. Uh, but I think that we have a very beautiful experience working in this kind of music, and we really enjoy singing together because our voices were made to match. Even when both of us are soprano, uh, our voices really fit. They really match, and it was a beautiful work. Uh, but yes, you need a very. It probably shouldn't be necessary, but you really need a very good relation with your partners because otherwise everybody wants to be heard. If you are a singer, you are trained to be heard, and you want to sing above your partners. But no, uh, finally, as musicians, we are music servants. So we have to do what is the best for the music, for the song. And if it requires that I fit my voice to my partner's one, I think that we all should do that.
And of course, the most benefit is going to be for you as an artist, because you grow as an artist when you learn how to sacrifice your ego in favor of the music, and for the people, the audience who is watching the final result of what they are listening. Because a competition on stage, maybe yes, for Otello in Si pel ciel marmorio Giulio, no? When the baritone and the tenor, Si pel ciel marmorio Giulio, when there is looks not only like a confrontation but as a duel on stage. But here you have to go to the other side and see saying, hey, my partner on stage is having trouble somewhere. I detect that she's going to fall short somewhere. So I have to go with her and maybe also finish a little earlier so that she catches her breath or she has any sort of trouble that I detect, so that we move on with the following phrase, feeling the two of them comfortable. Because this first one, this first part, uh, the two voices are walking together, but in the next part, they are going to start like separating. You know, first the voice of the mezzo opened, then the two of them started working together similarly most of the time, but then they are going to start evolving a little apart in in the harmonic composition that Maestro Hoffman decided. Which of course it is easier when even if it could be a competition when the two of them are singing together, but when each of them has to take its melody and still make it sound nice, that's when the challenge can start. So because because most of us, and that is very natural, keeping key what we have in our minds stored is the melody of the soprano. The highest melody is usually what remains in our heads. But if you pay attention, something similar is being sung by the mezzo a little lower. And then they completely, in a way, separate because the soprano is going to say, but when the soprano is saying "Ambrose in the brass," then the mezzo is going to go low. You know, in a different, if not a position, in a different mix of voices that still need to make it sound nice. So many people may not notice because the soprano is and the other voice in the meantime. So maybe people will not notice, but the other voice is going to be there. And they have to finish together to make it work. Otherwise, it's going to go derailed because the other verse nous, and it is not running the verse nouveau caresse. It's not running at the same time as verse nous. If you see, it starts later. The verse nouveau caresse, verse nous, it's like an echo. Now the mezzo is like an echo. Verse nouveau caresse, verse nouveau caresse. And the mezzo needs to refrain from the desire of being Amneris or Carmen or Dalila with a powerful verse nouveau because it's not going to. And this way of mixing the voices together is going to happen in Zephyr s'embrassa, and then verse nouveau chorus, Zephyr s'embrassa, verse nouveau. You see, the two of them are working partially together, saying not only different melodies but different words, and singers have to make it work. So what? I'm not sure, Katya, if you have worked with your students when you have to assemble them and put them together into duets, and how to provide advice on working on these parts when the two of them are singing their own lines, and one wants to pass over the other. Or sometimes you don't even listen to them because there is a very interesting effect on stage that maybe you would like to explain. Not only we listen to our own voices differently, but because of the way we project, not always singers are able to listen to the instrument or the other singer. That is something that happens and that can destroy the whole result. But why don't you tell us a little about it?
Yes, well, I was about to mention exactly that situation. Uh, I think that once that you are sure of what are you saying, what are you singing, the most important part of singing a duet is to listen your partner always. If you can listen, it's probably because you are singing louder or you are not paying attention or whatever, but you have to be conscious that there is another instrument um, beside you and not as the orchestra. I mean, the orchestra is important, or if you are singing with piano, you always pay attention to the piano because it's your support. Well, in this case, your main partner is the other voice. So if you are not listening, it's because definitely you are doing something that can be better, that you can correct, because it doesn't have to do necessarily with probably the way that your partner is singing. Probably there is not technique enough or any kind of reasons. You have to listen your partner. You have to pay attention of what is he or she doing, and if he's is not being heard by you, it's because you are not doing this right.
And also because many singers think that the louder you hear yourself, the better it is, and that is usually not the case. That can be, I know, I'm not sure if Katia can explain it simply because it can be complicated.
It's easy.
But remember that for Katia, everything is easy. Because you say, I am singing loud, and you think that it is because you feel all the sound and the resonance here in your head and sometimes part of your ears, but that may be the opposite. That is,
Yes,
if you hear everything here, then it means that people 5 meters from you is not listening what you think you are projecting, because instead of projecting, you are keeping it here. So you say, "Oh, what a powerful voice I had with Yago, Sipelchel," but you're listening to Sipelchel here when they have to say to listen it farther, Sipelchel, and the projection and the sound and the variation, everything has to be out there, not here. If you're keeping all the sound here, of course, there is no way you're going to hear to the person to your right or your left because your sound is flooding yourself. And that you have also to be wise not only to understand what you're projecting, but to see how it is matching the sound or the sort of guidance that you use. Verseno, when you say versen, and it sounds as you're expecting, that you know that you are doing the right way. But if you don't can't even hear that she's singing verseno, you're going your own path. And if it is not an orchestra and you're not following the director, then I don't know how you're guiding yourself because the pace is going to come from I don't know where. But Katia, why don't you explain us that simply? That it is that when you
Yes,
hear
of
everything
course.
here.
Everything is easy. Well, there are two voices. The first one is the voice that we hear. You are a singer or not, it doesn't have to do. We hear our voice inside of our heads. That's the truth. And when you listen, probably a voice note or your voice outside, it sounds different. Well, that's your real voice. Because inside of your head, you are listening part of your bones, your spaces, but it's not the way that it sounds outside. So if you are listening just your inside voice, um, it's like you just say it, Ricardo. You are singing here, and your voice is lacking of emission and projection. So probably not even your partner that is next to you is listening. So the right way to verify that you are using your voice correctly is to listen your voice outside, like if you were among the public. So I was saying in the last episode that I used to sing thinking that I sing through uh, help me please with popote straw.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I used to visualize that I sing through a straw. Sur les anneaux si pressés, les plus douces and I'm sure I could bet my right hand that my voice is running through the air at the distance and the people in the last place is listening to me. So paying attention to your inner voice can be cheating. So don't pay attention. Don't pay attention to that voice, believing that you are singing loud and that you are impressing the public. You need to sing through your straw to give direction and distance. That's the key.
Yeah, and remember that is easy.
It's so simple.
And now moving on the content of the two voices are singing their own melodies and are mixing in a little more complex way than just walking together on the same melody. We have again, but we have the first time that the mezzo is going into depths of the sound. Because we have mentioned again in the previous in many episodes, previous episodes, that even if it is a low note like this one, and we have talked about this row in this line, da, 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 you can say da, 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 because now they're
You're Toscaronte.
because people associate that low notes need to sound like a cave, like a huge cave. Da, da, da. And that is not the case. Not even because it is really not Caronte, as Katia said, but also because it is not the style of the composer and what you have been singing about. So the mezzo has to think less of being huge in that area and to make it work that Katia has also explained that it is very easy instead of giving all the depth. Because you will notice, and there, it is true. I have noticed that sometimes the lower voice does two things. Either they don't sing the notes that are written because they really don't know how to manage going so low without sounding so cavernous, or without losing or changing the position of the emission. Because sometimes they say, I sing low, I sing oh, oh, but it is like one part here and one part here. And Katia has explained that it has to be a continuum. But if you take it from here, it sounds better. Oh, and if you say oh, oh. So if so, they sometimes skip and they don't sing the notes that are written. Sometimes they don't. And if they sing the notes, they diminish the volume. Like trying to play a trick on the listeners because say, how do I do if I cannot manage this low note sounding correctly in the right mix? If I sing the note, it's going to sound cavernous because I cannot handle it. Then I sing it a little higher, or maybe I sing the right note, but I sing it so low that nobody notices that it is a cave. But it is important because even if I told you that there are parts where we pay attention to the soprano. In this part, this verse, it is the voice of the mezzo that is alone. So maybe you don't notice when the soprano is embrace because people are listening to the embrace while the other is verse novo. Nobody's going to pay attention mainly to the verse nu because there is embrace. But immediately verse no, verse, the verse, she is alone, people are going to listen. People is going to realize. So with that very full instrument, after when the voice of the soprano joins, maybe they will not notice that you're saying verse no, verse no, because she's going to say vo, verse, vo, verse. People are now shifting again their attention to the vo, verse. But that is the trick, singing together, then playing their own melodies, then sometimes the mezzo alone, then the soprano over the mezzo, and the mezzo is doing something else that maybe people are not noticing. But again, there are small pieces where the mezzo is singing alone and it has sounds harmonical in a very harmonical and nice way, which again is described easily, but it's not so easy to achieve.
It is because yes, I could suggest to a mezzo, for example, in this case, if you are ending in this A, and you can approach to a very low note. For a soprano, is a lower note in sensation is a lower note than for a mezzo, and you can approach to these notes with a high collocation, a high position, and it would sound better and not as a cave.
Because people are expecting this to sound known, verse novo, and it doesn't have to sound forced. It has to sound so naturally and flowing, and that is also true for the note.
It can sound high.
Because I wanted to mention that we have been addressing the challenges of the low voice, but the soprano, when even if it is not a high note, because it's embrasse, it is not really a high note, but it is part of the highest the soprano sings. It cannot say embrace, embrace, it is not that. It has to also be very quiet, if not quiet, very like in control, still floated, like not like naturally increasing because otherwise, if one is going to a cave and the other is going too high, the result is usually not good. So the soprano controls herself in the embrasse, and the mezzo avoids being Ulrica. So that's the only way you're going to have a beautiful duet there. Let me see. And for the final part, we have the two voices again. The mezzo opened. They walked together in the same text. Then they started going their own melodies. Sometimes the soprano alone, sometimes mixed with the mezzo, sometimes as a lonely word from the mezzo. And then we are at the final part when they are joining, when they say Vele nuit d'amour sourit à nos ivresses, and the choir, if you are lucky enough, the choir is going to start with the they are going to start mixing their voices there, if you are lucky enough to have a choir, and the voices of the mezzo and the soprano, I will continue for a second phrase when they say nuit plus douce que le jour, oh belle nuit d'amour. Oh, belle nuit d'amour. Again, the mezzo is going to be alone, and the soprano is going to Asuriano si prese, a super high note in forte, the opportunity for the soprano to reach the sky. But remember, you are in control. If one is not Ulrica, the other one is not Olympia, so the two of them control themselves. Go disparately. But now we know that, or we understand that we are reaching the end. Sourianos ivresse, belle nuit d'amour, oh belle nuit d'amour. And then not only the choir, but the voices are reaching, and we find a double P with this. I don't want to say because they are not really ornaments, but here the voice has to carry a very interesting emotion. Like dreaming, like letting yourself be carried out. So I think it's more difficult from the perspective of the interpretation rather than the technique. Even though we have also explained that, look at this, we have several ligaturas, so now you are being requested to have a beautiful homogeneous series of notes. But it has to, in a way, it has to be, if you allow me the expression, like convincing. Oh, because you can easily be carried out in thinking that these are high notes or just at least higher of what you've been singing. But it's not that. It's like you started, you approach, and then like you're leaving the stage with, ah, and it has to be very nicely homogeneous, continuously emitted. The mezzo will be working with her Ulrika in the but nobody's going to listen to that. Really, to be sincere, people is going to be listening to the high line of the mezzo of the soprano. Sorry, I'm sorry for the mezzos. Yeah, we are being way too sincere, but that is the truth. People tend to listen to the high notes rather than the low. So, but do you have any advice for this part, Katia, when we have reached just
Um, well, after the ecstasy that we heard in this F that has a forte, remember that after ecstasies, we have this period of calm. There are some arias that wrap up with the high note triple F, but it's not the case. We are talking about um, a sensual and intimate moment. There is an ecstasy, and then you tend to relax. So wrap up with that sensation, with that idea. High but soft.
And again, we also have the other thing that many singers are scared because after the if you notice the melody of the mezzo, of the soprano of Giulietta is descending. She starts every time she reaches a bar, she's descending on the scale on the notes until she reaches a low note that has to be continuous for several bars. And that's when singers say, "Oh man, we are in trouble," because when you are not trained to have a good reading technique, everything is like trouble, right? And more when they are continuous notes. And people arrive sometimes so stressed to this part, and instead of sounding relaxed, they sound like a stiff. Oh, like to plane, or how am I going to keep this? And the moment that has to be like magical because it is like a magical way of ending. Ah, it has to be to flow that uh, naturally relaxed. I would even suggest that you do it with a with a diminuendo or sort of making it disappear your voice, but that it sounds natural. Not that I run out of breath, so I make it because I run out of breath. It has to come natural because I have planned to do that. But you have to agree with your partner on stage how long each of you can hold the note. Because of if one of them stops earlier and the other continues because his ego is larger than being a good colleague on a stage, you're going to lose it. It's not going to work. So, and Katia knows that there are these tricks for singers, like looking like, hey, if I move this finger, if I smile, if I do this, it means I'm running out of breath. So we cut it right after.
Yeah, that happens.
But maybe because you both agreed and you could maybe take the note for 6, 8, or even 10 seconds. But when you're on the stage, things happen. So maybe one of them finds himself in trouble for whatever the reason and says, no, I'm not going to make it for the duration we agreed. It's going to be shorter. So you make sure that the other person, even if she is not very happy of cutting it earlier, at least the two of them wrap it up nicely and more I shared a number of episodes earlier that when you reach these notes, instead of putting your whole thoracic uh stiff, like I'm going to put it here and then it's not going to work. You're going to feel strangled somewhere in your body. It's going to work opposite to what you need to do. You need to arrive, yes, with a good amount of air, but relaxed, so that the sound floats. It's immediate. And you can even play a little with the vibration at the end, and it's going to be nice. But if you're so worried of it has to be 5 bars, it has to be 5 bars. Oh, people are going to see your face on the stage and they are going to say, "This man, this woman is dying." But it has to be the opposite. They have, when you finish, you have to be so very happy of the beauty you sang that you seem relaxed and people are going to love it. But any other advice, Katia, that you would like for these endings when the two of them have to sing a low, long, lasting note?
Well, as a soprano, I think that in this particular pitch, the mezzo will sound more and will feel more comfortable than you. That's natural. So if you are lacking of air, you can use this trick of sing a decrescendo, take some air, and then you start to increase again. That could work.
You have to at the end you two have to work your way out together because it is not two arias played at the same time. It is a duet, and it is a duet. Then you guys have to agree on how to do it, and you still have the orchestra or the piano. So there's more than just one people that you need to agree with. And I think that this is a melody that is going to remain in the minds of many people because, as we explained earlier, when maestros understand and compose a melody that is going to be in your mind, forget about the words. La, 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 la. Even if you're driving, if you're riding, if you're walking, this is like a melody that relaxes you. So what would be a nice version? The version that relaxes you. If you notice the two voices of them are floating, one goes to the lower notes without being Ulrika, the other reaches her only high note without singing Olympia or Lucia di Lammermoor, without going to their two extremes of their voices, missing. I'm sure it's going to relax you. At least for myself, I find it relaxing.
If it's complicated to to separate the voices, to know who is singing, then it's a good duet.
Exactly. That could be a way to do it. If you are unable to say when it was the mezzo and it was the soprano, it's because they really knew how to mix their voices. They really nailed it. So, with that being said, for our listeners in YouTube, two short messages. I think you heard my little baby cry a little earlier. If you have watched our shorts, I have a new baby that I rescued barely almost 2 weeks ago. She had a broken leg. You can watch the short. So she just had surgery. She's recovering. So I'm taking care of her. She's here. She's here with me in my room. So it is not possible to, she's still a little baby, a 2 months kitten. So she's trying to go through the post surgery. We are looking forward for her to recover. So maybe more programs we will have her voice here. Unfortunately, this was for pain. Hopefully for the future it's going to be of joy, and I'm going to be able to put her on the screen so that you meet her. That was announcement number one. Announcement number two for YouTube. This is the last episode of the season 7 that we are recording, Katia and I, at the beginning of the month. The season 8 continues, but for the season 7 we are wrapping up. We have all the season already recorded. So I don't know when in time people on Spotify, Amazon Music, or Apple Podcast, we are going to listen to this episode, probably January or February 2025. But for people on YouTube that we are premiering it on, we already have everything recorded, so we are good to go on the season 7. And I am in conversations with Katia to see what other materials can produce for our audience in both social media. So you will listen to from us again on the not on the dissection season, but we continue on the season 8 for the spectacular singing with Katia, and look forward to what Katia is going to prepare for us next. Final words, Katia?
Um, Enjoy this beautiful, beautiful music as a singer or as a listener. And I think that Offenbach made a masterpiece with this. It's probably one of the most beautiful pieces of music that we can recognize with no words and anywhere, and for many reasons has been taken for parts of movies and publicity, and it's lovable.
With that being said, thank you everybody for season 7, and we'll be seeing here very, very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
You can follow our channel for the latest updates and more content. Opera We Love Singing, in just one word. Link in the description of the episode.